Dear Gauteng leader Solly Msimanga has accused Gauteng Premier Makhura of failing the people of the province. Msimanga charged that little had changed in 8 years of Makhura at the helm, while the rate of crime, unemployment, poverty and corruption accelerated further. Msimanga was addressing the media after his party filed a motion of no confidence against the Premier. He joins us now to explain the opposition's position. Solly, good evening.
Good evening, Gwen. I hope you're well, and thank you very much for having us, and good evening to the listeners as well.
Thank you so much for taking this time to speak to us. So you have made the announcement that you're going for a motion of no confidence. The ANC, the Premier himself, has responded and said this is a desperate move for relevance and an attempt to remove the spotlight from yourselves. I mean, before we get into the nitty-gritties of your motion of no confidence, what do you make of that response?
Well, I found that response very arrogant and desperate in its own nature. Coming from an organization that has already given the Premier an ultimatum. He has been given 3 months to go anyway. So they want to get rid of him. What we want to then do is that we say we cannot wait until the ANC sorts itself out internally. The people of Gauteng are desperate. And so when they are saying we are desperate, yes, we are desperate not because we want to shift the spotlight away from the DA's own issues, but we are desperate because the people of Gauteng are desperate. The people of Gauteng are saying we don't have faith in a government right now to deal with the issues of crime that we're seeing now spiraling out of control. David Makhura himself admitted that as things stand right now in Mohlakeng and then in the West Rand in Kagiso, that the government, is become incapable and is actually now taken over by thugs and criminals. Now, this is somebody who had an opportunity during the budget preparations of government in Gauteng to ensure that we're able to put more policemen and women in office and we're able to then equip them. But this is a government that has already only budgeted to purchase only 50 vehicles for the whole province. Now, how do you then begin to then fight crime in that respect, Gwena? So this is amongst the other things that we are questioning about the suitability of Premier Makhura and his executive to then take us through this crisis that we find ourselves in, and to make sure that Gauteng becomes a prosperous province that it should be and can be. And this is why we are saying that there's a motion of no confidence that we want to put against.
Let's say the motion of no confidence succeeds. What makes you confident that things will change?
Well, already we have started engaging with other political parties within Gauteng who are already in the legislature. We have seen that a party that has been in government since the beginning of democracy have failed to come up with new plans in terms of how to turn the economy around. There is an economic plan that we want to put on the table. There's a security plan that we want to put on the table. There's also a plan to make sure that municipalities across Gauteng are able to work much better than they have been able to work, to make sure that service delivery is actually even coordinated between the province and a number of municipalities, and that those municipalities that are failing are able to then get the support that they need from a provincial government that will ultimately lead to people getting the kind of services that they deserve. But ultimately will lead to making sure that there is better jobs, for the millions of people that have now become unemployed and are easily and every day becoming more and more unemployable. We're sitting with 2.6 million people that are unemployed in Gauteng, and of that 680,000 are people that have already given up the search for jobs, and now that is something that we cannot sit by and say, well, it is what it is. We need to do everything that we can to make sure that the situation is turned around.
Sorry, we know that a motion of no confidence is definitely a numbers game.
Yeah.
They have 37 seats, you have 20.
Yeah.
How are you going to, what's your plan to get this right? Because if we're doing the maths,
if you put all positions together, then we have 36 with the ANC. They only have a majority of one, and that will be the speaker. And we are going to be pushing for this motion to be tabled in a secret ballot. And if should it be tabled in a secret ballot, then I can guarantee you that we will win.
But is this the part where you're saying that you are then going to convince some members of the ANC to vote against Makhura?
I said to you right in the beginning, Kwena, that members of the ANC themselves at this point in time don't want David Makhura anymore. They feel that David Makhura is not carrying them through, that David Makhura has failed. The people of Gauteng has failed to deliver on the promises that have been made. And therefore, I'm telling you that if, it is going to be held in a secret ballot, David Makhura will not retain the seat.
But politics doesn't work like that, where, again, they would tell you that we're pushing the party agenda, the ANC agenda.
Well,
Yeah?
That is fine. As I said to you, the numbers then are 36-36, and the speaker will have to then be deciding the deciding vote. So it will be 36-37 if we get to that. That's number one. Number two is that if they defeat the motion and after the debate, they will have to be the ones going out there and then explaining to the people of Gauteng how they chose to protect one of their comrades instead of ensuring that we're able to then get Gauteng to be working again. So it is a choice that they will have to explain to the voters out there, and they will have to be telling the people how, David Makhura, who's failed since the beginning of his term to turn things around, will be able to turn things around in the next coming year and a half or 2 years before we get to the next elections.
Would I be right then to presume that you are in talks, or you have been in talks with the other members of the opposition for the other, 16 seats?
Well, we are in engagement with all other political parties. We have started engaging in terms of what we would want to achieve. Obviously, this is something that we will then need to iron out. Because one of the things that we are not going to do is that we are not going to wait to catch the bus and not know what we want to do once we catch the bus. We already wanting to put plans in motion in terms of what should happen immediately when we get into office. And because we are confident that even beyond 2024, Gauteng and most other provinces in South Africa, and maybe even the whole country, might be governed through coalitions. We want to put this to a test right now and make sure that it works, and it works for the people of Gauteng, so that when it comes to 2024, we will be able to then say, these are the parties that you can trust to be able to then take you forward. And, this is something that, unfortunately, the governing party, while trying to ensure that they remain in power, have been telling people coalition governments don't work. So we want to prove that if they can actually work, and these are then that is the future of South African politics, whether people like it or not.
In conversation with the other political parties in search for these votes, do they share the same sentiment?
Well, they do share the same sentiments, and I think the governing party's own internal squabbles have actually put a number of people that even had supported them initially, off. To then say, they don't like what they see coming up, even though they had supported them or voted with them when it was budgets, or abstained when there was another motion of no confidence that we had put before. They're now saying that, the internal squabbles that are happening there are putting them off, and they don't think that they want to continue being associated with an organization that is in government and is incapable and is actually more focused on internal fighting and internal jostling for positions that we have seen as we have seen here. And it has actually now become very much public knowledge that the ANC in Gauteng don't want Makhura to see his term through. In fact, we have been told by the ANC members themselves that, Makhura has been given 3 months to vacate office, or, he will be pushed out. And in fact, we know that there's even members of the ANC who are part of the executive of David Makhura that are also on the firing line. Now, you cannot run government where people are going to be living in fear all the time. You want to make sure that people are in positions, people are actively and every day on the ground doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, not watching their backs all the time and saying, when is the X coming for me? Am I going to be removed by the PEC of the ANC, who is more aligned to this particular individual and his function than the other one? So this is something that we want to make sure that doesn't continue to be, hampering the progress that Gauteng should be making.
So, Solly, is this, in your opinion, as the DA, a Makhura problem, or an ANC problem, or we can't separate the two?
Well, I don't think that you can separate the two. One is that he is the leader of government in Gauteng, and unfortunately is the leader of the ANC, representing mainly the ANC in government. This is why I said to you, the ANC will have an opportunity right now to then say, we recognize that there is a problem, and therefore maybe we might need to remove David Makhura and then come up with another plan in terms of how we will be able to, in the last 18 months of the year, or the last 18 months before we get to the next elections, to be able to then convince South Africans that, and ultimately, or more specifically the people of Gauteng, that they do have a plan. But at this point in time, I don't think that they do have. I've listened to Begitele in Kagiso telling people that, South Africa is now governed by criminals. I mean, this is a minister of police. David Makhura repeating the same line. Panyazali Sufia said so, a couple of weeks ago. These are people that are legislators, people that are making rules, people that are implementers of government programs that are supposed to be taking us forward, that is supposed to be making sure that we feel safe in communities that we are living in. But that is not the case. And this is why we are saying, Gwena, this motion of no confidence, we are putting in David Makhura. But you must remember that when David Makhura falls, his executive falls with him as well.
So just finally then, should you succeed with this motion of no confidence, are you, as the DA, ready to take over?
Well, I think in the coalition we should. We've already put a ready-to-govern program together. We have already started engaging, as I said, with other political parties. We are going to be meeting up again, I think twice during the course of this week still, to finalize a number of things that we would want to get ready should the motion then succeed. And if that motion succeeds, we will then be able to then make the announcement all on the day in terms of how, what are the plans then going forward.
So in an event where the other opposition parties say, well, we want to a share of the power, coalition, how do you deal with such a matter? Well,
the fortunate part is that most of the parties were already in government in different in a different sphere in the local government. We already in partnership with. So, I mean, it's just a continuation of those discussions, and we will then have to see, how we're able to then put the executive together. And this is why I'm saying that we are already meeting this week in order to discuss some of the elements that needs to go into the motion and what needs to go in terms of the preparations thereof. And then obviously then it will be discussed with the national leadership of different political parties. And if there is an agreement from that point onwards, we will then proceed to make the announcements in the media space and also in the public in terms of what we intend doing going forward.
Fantastic stuff. Solly, thank you very much for coming through to talk to us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening to you and to the viewers.
That's the leader of the DA in Gauteng, Solly Msimanga.